Welcome everyone. Somatic session number 7. So we are getting up there in the adventures of trying to connect to ourselves and our environment. So this week we are working on the rib cage, and as I kind of talked about in the slides, we hold a whole lot of anxiety and protective mechanisms in our rib cage. And so for me personally, this has been a long time of doing the release work in this part of my body. And so I've really noticed going to an osteopath, one of my friends who's an osteopath, and her mentioning to me that my breathing was very dysregulated, and so starting to do a lot of release work in my rib cage has brought to life a lot of old patterns of fear and just a general level of uncertainty. And so so mapping this session will be easiest if you have, I'm sitting on a bolster, so if you have a bolster, I'm quite tall, so I have to kind of take a combination of bolster and blanket for my head. You can also use just a couple of long blankets or a few pillows, whatever you have on hand to kind of make this session a little bit more obvious to kind of find the areas in the rib cage on where we are expanding and where we are contracting. And so if you just want to lie down on your prop, and I have to shuffle quite far down so that my head is supported, so make sure your head is not falling backwards, but supported by whatever you have underneath you, and just kind of take mental inventory of how your back body is resting on whatever it is that you're laying on. Does one side of your body feel more pronounced or heavier on your back support? The other one lighter? Is the back of your pelvis more pronounced, or is there more information on one side of your body than the other? When you sense into that part, how are your shoulder blades resting on the ground or your prop that you're laying on? The back of your head, the back of your hands on the ground. How are your feet making contact with the surface that they're sitting on? Does one shoulder blade feel like it's higher towards your ears than the other? And if you take your awareness to the side that is more prominent in your mind's eye, for me that would be the left, and start sensing into the area of your lower ribs or your 10th rib, which would be the lowest part of your rib cage, and rest your awareness there, and the armpit on that same side. Does your lower part of your rib cage feel closer towards your pelvis or closer towards your armpit? Do you have a sense of your lower ribs sticking up more towards the ceiling, or are they dropping away from the body? Are they dropping away from the spine? Or do they pull more pulled inwards towards your breastbone? And as you hold your awareness on your lower ribs and your armpit, does anything change? Moving up to the midsection of your rib cage and your breastbone on this side, can you sense into the mid part of your rib cage and the body of your breastbone? Can you feel your ribs rising and falling with the breath? Does your breastbone feel more drawn in towards the spine? Does it feel like it's pushing up towards the ceiling? What is the relationship between your central part of your rib cage and your armpit? And as you hold your awareness in that area, does anything change? Sensing into the top part of your rib cage, the area where your collarbones meet the central part of the manubrium. The top part of your rib cage protecting the heart. Can you feel the distance or sense the distance between your shoulder blade and the top part of your breastbone? Has the position of your shoulder blade changed since you started paying attention to the rib cage in this area? What is the imagined distance between your top of your rib cage and your manubrium with the bottom of your earlobe on this side? And as you hold your awareness in this area, does anything change? Taking inventory of your right and left sides. Does one side of your rib cage feel heavier, the other one lighter? How is the ground contact between the prop or whatever you're laying on and the side that you've been paying attention to versus the side that you haven't? Moving your awareness to the opposite side that you haven't mapped in your mind. Taking your awareness to the lower ribs on this side. And the xiphoid process, which is the bottom part of your breastbone. Do your lower ribs feel closer towards your pelvis or closer towards your armpit? Can you sense your lower ribs poking up into the ceiling? Or do they feel closer, drawn down towards the ground? Do they feel more pulled in towards the midline or towards the breastbone? And as you hold your awareness on your lower ribs and your armpit on this side, does anything change? Moving up to the middle part of your rib cage and your breastbone. Can you feel your mid part of your rib cage rising and falling with the breath? Does your breastbone feel more drawn up towards the ceiling? Does it sense more towards the central part of your body? Is it more pulled inwards towards the spine? Does this part of your rib cage feel more to the right or the left of the prop that you're laying on? And as you hold your awareness on your breastbone and the middle part of your rib cage, does anything change? Moving your awareness to the upper part of your rib cage on this side. Can you sense into the central part of where your collarbones meet, the manubrium, the top part of the breastbone? How is your shoulder blade resting on this side in relationship to the manubrium or the top part of your breastbone? Are you breathing to this top part of your rib cage, or is your breathing limited to lower parts of your rib cage? What is the relationship between the top part of your manubrium and your armpit on this side? And as you hold your awareness on your manubrium and your armpit on the side, does anything change? Taking inventory of right and left sides of the body. How are your feet resting on the ground? How are the shoulder blades resting on the ground or the prop that you are laying on? How is the back of your pelvis resting now that you've paid attention to both sides? Has there been any change? How the back of your head is making ground contact with the prop or the ground? Starting with the first movement of shifting your breastbone from side to side, gently initiating the movement, going to the left and going to the right. Shifting the weight of your breastbone back and forth on the prop that you're laying on. Can you feel one side of your rib cage fanning out or expanding and the other contracting as you're moving back and forth? Rotating your breastbone to the left and to the right. Does one side of your rib cage feel like it's shortening, the other one lengthening? Can you feel your back body moving back and forth? Can you feel your breastbone moving back and forth? Does it feel like your breastbone is being straight with the movement? Does it bend more towards one side or the other? Can you feel more weight on one shoulder blade? And then as you're moving your breastbone to the opposite side, the weight shifting to the other shoulder blade. Do you have a sense of your lower ribs moving as you're moving your breastbone back and forth? Do you have a sense of the central part of your ribs fanning out on one side and contracting on the other as you're moving back and forth? Does your rib cage feel more rigid and stationary? Do you have an easier side sensing into one part of your body than the other? Can you feel your collarbones shifting back and forth? Does one collarbone feel higher, the other one lower as you're moving your breastbone back and forth on this prop? taking a rest from this movement and taking mental inventory of how your rib cage feels overall in comparison to the start of the session. Do you have a sense of your lower ribs still poking up towards the ceiling? Or has your rib cage become more even overall in how it is making ground contact with what you are laying on? Lifting both arms up towards the ceiling. Taking the tips of your fingers inwards towards the rib cage and making a figure 8 pattern towards the outside of your body, bringing your fingertips up and back in. Repeating this figure 8 pattern on both sides of your body. Can you sense into the back part of your rib cage and your shoulder blades moving with this movement? Can you sense into the tip part of your scapula and your lower ribs at the back of your rib cage as you are moving your fingers in this figure 8 pattern? Can you feel your middle part of your rib cage expanding and contracting as you're moving your arms and fingers in this way? Do you have a sense of your collarbones accompanying this figure 8 pattern? Are you holding your breath as you're carrying out this movement? Can you feel your rib cage moving with this pattern? Does it feel like your rib cage is falling to the outside of your body as you're taking your arms out? And can you feel your ribs coming back in and up as you're moving your fingertips out towards the side? Do you have a sense of the back of your rib cage moving with the movement of your hands and fingers? A couple more movements. And resting your arms on the ground. Taking inventory again on how your rib cage is resting on the prop or the ground you're laying on. Is there any change in your breath and the areas your breath is traveling to since the beginning of the session? How are the back of your hands resting on the ground? For the third movement of the session, moving your knees to one side and then to the other. The range of movement doesn't matter so much, more just the awareness of your knees falling to one side and then to the other, sensing into your breastbone, and the right part of your rib cage. Do you sense your lower ribs shifting back and forth on this side with your knees? Are you holding your breath as you're moving your knees back and forth? Can you sense any part of your rib cage contracting as to not fall off the prop? And if so, which part of your rib cage are you holding to protect yourself? Sensing into the middle part of your rib cage on this side as you are moving your knees back and forth. How is your clavicle and collarbones and manubrium moving on this side as you're moving your knees from right to left and left to right? Moving your awareness to the opposite side as you're moving your knees back and forth. Again, bringing awareness to your lower ribs. Do you feel your lower ribs closer towards your pelvis or closer towards your armpit, shifting back and forth? Are you holding your breath as you're moving your knees back and forth? Are you protecting yourself from falling off the prop as you're moving your knees back and forth? And which part of your rib cage is protecting you? Can you sense into the middle part of your rib cage as you're moving your knees back and forth? And finally, the top part, the manubrium, the collarbones, the area of your heart. Resting your feet on the ground, keeping your knees still. Taking note of your body overall. How does it feel different in comparison to the beginning of the session? Are your feet resting on the ground differently? Do your arms feel heavier, resting on the ground next to your rib cage? Are you breathing differently into your rib cage overall? Does the distance between your lower ribs and your pelvis seem different? the relationship to your rib cage and your armpits. Have your eyes softened. And when you're ready, rolling over to your side and gently off the prop. Taking a few breaths and getting up in your own time. As always, sending an intention of the practice out to the world, or wherever you are. Thank you for joining me. I found a tiny little bug inside the singing bowl, and I am amazed that it was able to handle the loudness of this sound. Thanks for joining me for week 7, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.